She has nothing, Vanessa said loudly, her voice full of mock sympathy. She burned bridges, lost her network, and has no support left. I mean, what's even the point of bringing her into this room? I had just stepped inside. It was supposed to be a closed session, a decision-making meeting, 12 people in the room. 11 of them were surprised to see me walk in. One of them, Vanessa, was not. She smirked when our eyes met. That tight-lipped grin that always meant she thought she'd already won. She doesn't even have a seat, she added with a shrug, figuratively or literally. She motioned to the empty table as if proving some larger point. I looked around. The tension was thick, awkward smiles, nervous glances. No one spoke. I walked to the end of the table, pulled out a chair and sat down. I brought my own, I said calmly. And I also brought this. I reached into my bag and placed a leather folder on the table. A soft thunk that broke the silence like thunder. Vanessa laughed. A folder, that's your big comeback. I opened it without looking at her. Inside were 12 bound copies of A Plan My Plan. 7 months in the making. A full-scale business proposal investment breakdown brand, rebuild, and client strategy roadmap. I passed one to the person sitting closest to me, then handed out the rest. And then I sat back and watched. Vanessa tried to regain control. She's just trying to distract you, she said. It's too late. Everyone here already knows she has no stake in this anymore. No stake. I repeated, my voice even. I reached into the folder again and pulled out a flash drive. I set it on the table. This contains the updated data set on every client you pulled from me last quarter. I tracked the drop in retention satisfaction and engagement after my removal, all backed by timestamps and third-party analytics. Vanessa stopped smiling. Also, I continued included are copies of 3 NDAs that were broken when I was excluded from meetings I was legally entitled to attend. Claire, my legal advisor, wasn't in the room, but she didn't need to be. The documents did all the talking for me. I hadn't always been this version of myself. I used to be the yes woman, the dependable one, the invisible fixer. I worked weekends, skipped vacations, smoothed over every mess Vanessa made when her ambition outpaced her skill. I didn't need credit. I just wanted the work to be good. But somewhere along the way, she mistook humility for emptiness. She mistook silence for weakness. And when things got hard, she made sure I was the one who vanished. Not fired, not named, just quietly erased. But erasing me didn't mean I was gone. It meant I was invisible long enough to plan my return. As the others flipped through the pages, the room shifted. One by one, shoulders straightened. Pens were lifted, notes were taken. Vanessa stayed frozen. Her eyes were darting between the pages like she couldn't find a single weak spot. That's because there wasn't one. I'd had time. Time to focus. Time to watch. Time to write a roadmap that addressed every flaw she'd ignored while chasing applause. And now that plan was sitting in front of people who were tired of smoke and mirrors. I know what she told you, I said, meeting the eyes of each person at the table. That I was done, that I had nothing, that I was bitter. She's good at telling stories. I paused, let that hang. But I don't need to defend myself with words. I brought the work. You can read it, check the data, ask the clients. And then I looked at Vanessa. You said I had nothing, I said softly. You were wrong. I didn't lose everything all at once. It happened slowly, in the kind of way you don't even realize, until one day you look up and realize you've been written out of your own story. That's what Vanessa did best. She didn't fire people. She didn't scream, accuse, or explode. She just erased. She started with the little things, forwarding emails without CCing me, rescheduling meetings, accidentally introducing herself to clients as the strategic lead while calling me our internal coordinator. It was subtle, so subtle I convinced myself I was imagining it. And for a while, I let it go. Because that's what we're taught to do, right? Stay professional. Be graceful, don't stir the pot. So I smiled, I worked harder. I told myself that maybe she was just stressed. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe she really didn't mean anything by it. But Vanessa meant every move. She knew exactly what she was doing. When we first started working together, I genuinely admired her. She had fire, energy, the kind of ambition that lights up a room. She talked fast, walked faster, and had a way of making people feel like they were part of something big. I was the opposite, steady, quiet, analytical. The person who fixed the budget at midnight or noticed when a client's tone changed in email. We worked well together until she realized she didn't need both of us to shine. Only one spotlight, only one microphone, and she decided it would be hers. I started noticing gaps. Design files I worked on had my name stripped. She gave presentations I created without a single mention. She rewrote internal job titles, mine disappeared. When I asked, she laughed it off. Oh, must have been a template error. I'll fix it later. She never did. Then came the shift. Suddenly, I wasn't included in new project kickoffs. When I raised my hand in meetings, she'd interrupt or redirect. She even changed the org chart and said I had transitioned into an advisory role. I never agreed to that. But by the time I noticed, half the room already believed it. The final blow came during the merger meeting. We had spent 6 months building a partnership with another agency. I negotiated terms, laid out the integration roadmap, worked weekends to align both teams. The day we signed, she gave the presentation. She took every question. She shook every hand. And when the CEO of the other firm thanked her for bringing this all together, she smiled and said, "It was a solo push, but worth it." I sat 2 rows back. Not acknowledged, not even in the credits. That was when I knew. She wasn't accidentally sidelining me. She had pushed me off the stage and pulled the curtain closed before anyone noticed. I went home that night and cried. Not just from anger, not just from exhaustion, but because I felt like I'd lost who I was. And then I did something I hadn't done in months. I opened a blank document. At the top, I typed what they took, what I still have. And under those headings, I made 2 columns. The first one was short. Title, team, recognition, access. The second one, that list went on for pages. My ideas, my process, my relationships with clients, my designs, my instinct, my discipline, my vision, and most of all, my name. She could remove it from websites and memos, but she couldn't take it out of people's memories, or contracts, or source files, or email threads. And I kept everything. That's when I started building my plan. Not out of revenge, but out of clarity. If I was no longer part of their story, I'd write my own. While Vanessa held meetings, I took online classes. While she posted selfies with hashtags like #ChatYourBossEnergy, I rewrote my business framework. While she launched flashy campaigns built from my past strategies, I designed something no one had seen before, because this time it was all mine. No borrowed credits, no shared logins, no erasure, just me. It was lonely. There were nights I doubted myself, days I saw her rise and wondered if I was just bitter. But every time I sat down to just build, I remembered she had power by permission. I was building power by foundation. When I finally finished the plan 7 months later, I knew I had something solid. It wasn't loud, but it was real. And when the meeting invite came through for the strategy board session, where Vanessa had pitched her newest campaign, I didn't ask to attend. I didn't plead for space. I showed up, with 12 printed copies, and everything they thought I'd lost. The meeting didn't end in fireworks. There was no standing ovation, no dramatic walkout, just 12 people flipping through my proposal, murmuring to each other, while Vanessa silently stewed in her chair. She didn't say another word, not in that room, but she didn't stay silent for long. By the time I got home, she'd already posted on LinkedIn. Leadership isn't about showing up with a folder. It's about consistency, trust, and staying the course, especially when others try to confuse the mission. Focus, real leaders, no distractions. It was vague enough to avoid legal trouble, but it didn't need to name me. Everyone who had been in that meeting knew who it was about. And that was exactly the point. The comments came in fast. Supporters, doubters, people who didn't know the full story but had plenty to say. She's always been the visionary. Stay strong, Vanessa. Don't let the noise win. If someone walked in late with a plan, I wouldn't trust it either. It stung. Because even though I knew I had the truth, even though I had proof, public opinion doesn't wait for court rulings. It reacts to whoever speaks first, and Vanessa had the mic. Over the next few days, the whispering started again. Old colleagues texted me things like, "What's going on between you and Vanessa? I heard you're trying to start a competing firm. Is that true? She said you breached your NDA. That one stopped me." Because I hadn't. I knew I hadn't. Every file I used was mine. Every asset I presented was either independently created or publicly licensed. But the idea that she was spreading that rumor, strategically planting doubt, meant one thing: she was scared. And when people like Vanessa get scared, they get sloppy. So I did what I always do. I paid attention. I tracked everything: screenshots, timestamps, metadata, client messages forwarded to me with phrases like, "I thought this was your work. Vanessa said otherwise." And quietly, I contacted my attorney. Claire wasn't surprised. "She's trying to force you into an emotional reaction," she said. "Don't give it to her. Document everything. Let me know if she crosses a line." So I did. Every time Vanessa made a public statement, I saved it. Every private accusation, I asked for it in writing. Every blurred truth, I sharpened it with receipts. Because I wasn't just trying to defend myself, I was building the next step. Meanwhile, I kept moving. I launched a beta site for my new firm. No big announcement, no marketing push. Just a clean design, a contact page, and a few core service offerings. Within 2 weeks, I had 3 inquiries. One of them came from a former client Vanessa had claimed as her own. They told me, "Honestly, your version of the pitch was sharper. We only stayed out of loyalty, but loyalty shouldn't cost clarity." I thanked them, privately, quietly, because I didn't need to outshine Vanessa. I just needed to outlast her tactics. Then came the board response. 3 of the members from the meeting reached out to review the material further. They weren't dismissive. They weren't rushing to decide. They were curious. And curiosity, I'd learned, is the first crack in control. Vanessa panicked. She sent out an internal memo, somehow leaked within a day, accusing unauthorized individuals of attempting to destabilize current operations. She doubled her social media output, new slogans, new photos, a video interview clip where she claimed no one wins by looking backward. But she was starting to sound like she was shouting into a void. Because while she spun louder, I stayed in motion. Not louder, not messier, just clearer. I sent the board a follow-up. No accusations, no finger-pointing, just updated metrics, screenshots of client transitions, a revised timeline of project ownership with citations. Nothing emotional, just structure, strategy, and structure again. Vanessa tried to play chess in public. I played endgame in private. One night I got a message that stopped me mid-scroll. From Lauren, an account executive who used to sit on the other side of Vanessa's desk. Just wanted to say, "I saw what you did in that meeting, and what you've been doing since. I don't think they expected you to come back with that much grace and precision. Keep going. A lot of us are watching, and we're not all clapping for her anymore." I stared at the screen for a long time, because it reminded me, even when people say you have nothing, you're never truly empty. Not if you're still holding your values, your vision, and your voice. It was a Thursday afternoon, the kind where nothing feels urgent and everything feels like a long exhale after a heavy week. I was halfway through reorganizing my content folders when the call came in. Unknown number. Normally I let those go to voicemail, but something in my gut said, "Pick up." "Hi, is this Rachel Morgan?" "Yes, this is she. This is Dana Preston. I'm with the Strategic Growth Board at Everlyn Group. I've reviewed your proposal, and I'd like to schedule a time to speak." I blinked, sat up straighter. Everlyn Group. They weren't just a consulting firm, they were the firm, the ones who funded expansion projects for companies across 3 continents. Vanessa had pitched to them twice, both times rejected. And now, they were calling me. I scheduled the meeting for Monday, 3 days. 3 days to prepare for a conversation I didn't know was even possible 2 weeks ago. I reviewed every slide in my proposal, rewrote the executive summary, reorganized the appendices to highlight what I had built, not what Vanessa had tried to destroy. By the time I logged into that Zoom meeting, I was ready. Dana appeared on screen, composed, "Direct all business." "We've been watching the developments on your side," she said. "And while I won't comment on what's circulating publicly, I will say the way you've handled yourself has made an impression." She paused. "Your proposal was one of the most structured, insight-driven roadmaps I've seen this quarter. You've done more with limited resources than some of our partners with full teams." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Thank you," I said. "I just focused on what I knew would last Clarity Systems' value." She nodded. "Exactly. That's what we're looking for. We'd like to fund a pilot program based on your model. If successful, it could scale into something much larger. Think long-term partnership." I didn't say anything right away, because I didn't trust myself not to cry. After the meeting ended, I just sat there, staring at the screen. Then I laughed, not because I thought it was funny, but because I realized something. Vanessa had been so busy trying to erase me from a room. She never saw I'd been building my own building next door. News travels fast in our industry. By Friday afternoon, word had already reached Vanessa. I knew because she posted a lengthy passive-aggressive reflection on LinkedIn. Sometimes people forget who carried them, but the truth always catches up. The world sees through imitation. Real creators can't be copied. No names, no direct reference. But the bitterness was unmistakable. And this time, the comments weren't all applause. A few brave voices pushed back. Or maybe people rise on their own merit. There's enough room for more than one vision. Credit isn't claimed, it's earned. I didn't like the drama, I never did. But I wasn't afraid of it anymore. Because for the first time, I wasn't reacting, I was leading. The following week, Everlyn sent the contract. 6 figures. Full creative autonomy. Advisory board inclusion. I signed it with steady hands. Not trembling. Not revenge-driven, just ready. But the real twist wasn't in the deal. It came in the form of an email. From the same board Vanessa once charmed. Subject: Proposal Review, Rachel. After careful internal discussion, we'd like to extend an invitation to present your full roadmap to our advisory council. The work you've done speaks volumes. Please let us know if you're willing to collaborate on your terms. I stared at it for a long time, not because I needed their validation, but because the last time I was in a room with them, they barely saw me. Now they were asking me to lead. I said yes, but not because I wanted to prove Vanessa wrong, because I wanted to prove to myself that surviving something ugly doesn't mean you have to carry the ugliness forward. I would step into that room again, not with a chip on my shoulder, but with vision in my hands. The day of the presentation, I wore navy blue, hair pulled back, simple, solid. As I entered the building, I passed by someone I didn't expect to see. Vanessa. She was exiting another boardroom, shoulders tight, mouth in a hard line. Our eyes met. She didn't say anything, neither did I, because she already knew. She had celebrated too early. And now, I was just getting started. I didn't throw a party, no balloons, no champagne, no gloating selfie with a signed contract. I went home, poured myself a cup of tea, and sat quietly at the kitchen table. The same table I'd cried over months before. The same table where I'd mapped out my next move on sticky notes and coffee-stained notebooks. This time, though, the quiet wasn't heavy. It was full. Because this time, silence wasn't about being silenced. It was about choosing peace. I kept thinking about that day in the meeting room when Vanessa said I had nothing. She meant no title, no team, no backing, no platform. She was right about those things for a moment, but what she didn't see, what she couldn't measure, was everything I'd been rebuilding while she counted me out. She didn't see the discipline it took to keep working when no one was clapping. She didn't see the hours I spent learning, designing, refining. She didn't see the people who reached out behind the scenes, quiet voices who said, "We see you, keep going." And that's what nothing really looks like sometimes. It looks like late nights and no applause. Like starting over with no spotlight. Like walking away from what's broken, even when it's the only thing you've known. But it's not empty, it's foundation. I didn't come back to get even. I came back to reclaim my space. Not because I needed her to lose, but because I needed to remember what I was capable of without her shadow looming over me. And I remembered. Every time I made a decision without second-guessing. Every time I stood in a room and didn't shrink. Every time I saw someone else's attempt to erase me and smiled because I knew they were too late. Here's what I learned: your worth isn't decided by who leaves you out of the room. Silence isn't weakness, it's sometimes the beginning of a strategy. And the ones who say you have nothing are usually terrified of what you'll become when you stop trying to prove them wrong. So I stopped proving. And I started building. I don't tell this story for applause. I tell it for you, the woman reading this, who's been told she's too small, too late, too invisible to matter. I promise you, you're not invisible. You're just in the middle of becoming. And what feels like nothing right now, it might just be the clearest, strongest, most honest beginning of your life. Have you ever been told you had nothing, that you were finished, that you were replaceable, that you'd never come back? Tell your story in the comments. Because every time you rise, quietly, rebuild carefully, and return on your own terms, you're showing the world what nothing really looks like. Share your moment, and take back your voice. We're listening.